The good news is this court's not just doing whatever Trump wants. And so that is a small bright spot in a lot of dark places.
It is that they are reflecting a deep skepticism that other courts have had, that many of these district courts, and that's part of why they acted so quickly, and that's part of the tone of the opinion. They don't think the government's playing straight with them, and that is going to have profound effects on all litigations going forward.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to George Conway Explains It All to Sarah. I'm Sarah Longwell, publisher of the Bulwark, and because I am not a lawyer, I have asked my good friend George Conway to explain all the illegal news that is fit to print to me and to you. George, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
2 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
1, where are you?
I'm in Barcelona.
Barcelona.
I think that's my fake Spanish accent, I guess.
Oh, that's exciting. And number 2, can you define habeas corpus?
It's like a dead person. And it's like the scene in Monty Python when they're bring out your dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the guy puts the people in the wheelbarrow, it's habeas corpus.
Great news. You have just qualified yourself to run the Department of Homeland Security.
Am I a puppy killer?
Can you believe that? Can you believe?
Well, what is? Look, she's just some random person with plastic surgery from South Dakota. I mean, what do you expect?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't mean that. I shouldn't.
I know what you mean. That's like a real question, but honestly, what do I expect from the person who runs the Department of Homeland Security? Meaning the person who is responsible for deciding whose
corpus is habeas?
Like habeas corpus is the thing. It's like the center of what she's doing.
Well, I mean, what's the center of what she's doing is she's kidnapping people and sending them to other countries.
But maybe that's because she doesn't understand what habeas corpus means.
I don't think she cares.
I think you're right.
It's a legal thing, and I don't think they really want to burden her brain with what habeas corpus is.
What an embarrassment. All jokes aside, like what an egregious violation of the American public to put somebody in charge of the Department of Homeland Security who does not understand that central constitutional principle.
As opposed to having Judge Jeanine as the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, as opposed to having Pete Hegseth and his socks. I don't know. I hate to normalize any of this, but she's about what I'm expecting these days. Yeah. I mean, I would, if you had laid a bet, and said, bet whether or not Kristi Noem knows what habeas corpus is, I would have said probably not. I love that. And I think I love that the Democratic senators are asking these questions. Like, what time is it? Oh, I don't know. They should just ask knowledge questions. What's the capital of Ukraine? Half of them probably can't answer that question.
Kyiv, right?
Kyiv. How you pronounce it?
Got it. Okay, well, that's not even what I wanted to talk to you about. It was just one of those things where, as somebody who doesn't always know legal terms myself, I sometimes can have sympathy for things like this, but not when she's in the middle of a bunch of cases that has habeas corpus at its core.
Habeas corpus is kind of a thing. It's been around for the better part of 1,000 years.
Yeah.
The Great Writ and
Lincoln had to deal with it
from the Great Charter.
Civil War. Yep.
Magna Carta.
All right. Well, because every time we record, immediately, I can't wait to find out what is going to happen as soon as we're done recording here, because some big legal news is going to drop immediately after we do it. Because last week when we recorded on Friday, like 2 hours later, the Supreme Court issued an important opinion in AARP versus Trump. To remind folks, back in it was like April, I think it was April 19th, the Supreme Court temporarily blocked removal of alleged members of Tren de Aragua under the Alien Enemies Act. But the question wasn't resolved until last Friday in a pretty stinging opinion from the Supreme Court. The court said the detainees' interests at stake are particularly weighty. Under these circumstances, notice roughly 24 hours before removal, devoid of information about how to exercise due process rights to contest that removal, surely does not pass muster. It was a 7-2 opinion with only Thomas and Alito dissenting. So what do you think? Are the majority of justices starting to bristle at the administration's sort of brazen flouting of the law and the Constitution?
Yeah, big time. I mean, this was just an incredibly fast and incredibly clear ruling that expressed a lot of skepticism about what the government is even saying. I mean, it went back through the facts and basically showed how the government was playing both sides of the street with the courts while selling the courts. Well, we're not going to do something immediately. We'll do something. We'll hold off for 24 hours, but they're putting people on buses at the same time. And I think that the Supreme Court, having seen what happened here, having seen what happened in the other case where it decided the notice issued, the JGG case, and which came from Judge Boasberg in the District of Columbia, and then having dealt with Abrego Garcia, I think it's pretty clear to them that this administration's not acting in good faith, and you cannot give them the slack that it perceived the U.S. District Court and the Fifth Circuit were doing in this case. I mean, what happened, and it really is quite incredible, because what happened in the district court was 12 o'clock one day. I don't even remember whether it was morning or night. I think it was the afternoon. They were filing a petition for writ of habeas corpus. Then later they filed a motion for a preliminary injunction late at night for a temporary restraining order, because they got notice or they got indications from their clients and from people who are watching the situation that people were being loaded onto buses, and they had pictures of people holding the removal notices that were purported to comply with the Supreme Court's statement that you can't get removed without a notice, but they're basically we're doing it, giving you, here's a piece of paper, get on the bus, which isn't sufficient notice, which is what the Supreme Court basically held in this case. And what happened was, in the middle of the night, at 40 minutes later, the plaintiffs basically took this up to the Court of Appeals, basically saying, these people are on buses. They're going to be gone before we get any relief. And then they went to the Supreme Court, because the Fifth Circuit didn't really do anything in the middle, and they did this in the middle of the night a few weeks ago. And that's what happened the first time around. And the second time around here, this was the decision that came after the Fifth Circuit dismissed the case for lack of jurisdiction, because in its view, there was nothing to rule on. But the reason why there was jurisdiction, according to the Supreme Court, is that if the failure of a district court to rule on an injunction, which is what happened in the middle of that night, amounts to a denial of the injunction, which it was here, the court said, because the fact is these guys were basically put on buses, you can appeal. Because it's essentially that the order's been denied. And so what was extraordinary about the Supreme Court's decision is they were basically not faulting or criticizing, but they're basically saying we had to do this because the government was screwing around so much that it put these people on buses, and unless somebody had to acted, there would be the case would be over. And that was basically what they held. They basically didn't trust the government not to take these guys, put them out in the middle of the night, and put them on planes.
So I have several follow-up questions, but one of them, and this is like not the most important technical one, but it just, I keep thinking about it. Thomas and Alito, like Trump did not put them on the Supreme Court.
Right.
Like, Amy Coney Barrett, like all the people that Trump put on the Supreme Court, they ruled against him, right. Which I think should be sort of a good indication to people that there is, I don't know, some independent virtue left on the Supreme Court. But what do you make of the fact that it's like these W. Bush appointees that are the ones that are basically just being like, I'm going to give Trump whatever he wants?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of. I don't know what to make of why the Trump appointees are better than the non-Trump appointees among the conservatives, but it's absolutely 100% the case. I guess they've been red pilled, to use your phrase. They are much more out there than the conservatives that Trump put on the Supreme Court, including and especially Amy Coney Barrett, who's seems to be very, very conscientious and very, very concerned about the court's ability to enforce constitutional provisions in a way that Alito and Thomas don't seem to be bothered with. And I think it's just consistent with our perception of Thomas and Alito, the Thomas's, failure to comply with ethics, even, just straight out violations of ethics laws, and in addition to just the bad look that he has given, taking all these goods and whatever from other people. And then Alito with his wife and the flag. I mean, there's something off there about those two, I hate to say. And there's something off with them. That's all I have to say.
Do you think they're going to retire during this Trump term?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think they probably would, if they're going to retire and they're and they want to. Probably, yes. That's the answer. Probably, because I don't think they want to take the risk of another, and they're about the right age. I don't think they want to take the risk of having a Democratic president elected in 2028 and then their seats going to someone else. So, it's very plausible. And Thomas has never been fully happy on the Supreme Court. And that's one of the reasons why that has been given as an excuse for people, for all the whining and dining of him. There's an effort by Leonard Leo and others to keep him happy so that he stays on the court. And I think he's wanted to leave for a long time. And Alito, I do know, I don't think Mrs. Alito ever liked Washington. So they have their reasons to leave, but they have their reasons to stay because I think they feel that they're staking out positions that nobody else will stake out. But we'll see.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, I was thinking about this. I was like, if you're them and you've decided to sort of throw rigorous jurisprudence out the window to kind of be Donald Trump's people on the court, do you stay through his term or not? Especially because, both of them are of that age. And if you had two retire, there's something interesting about the fact that no matter how conservative the picks are, although this might not be true, Trump may take a real lesson from what's happening and say, like, I will only nominate people who feel a personal sense of fidelity to me.
Yeah, well, you can see some that there are people out there competing for this position and trying to get attention, I think. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say it that way, but look, I mean, Eileen Cannon would be pick number 1 or pick number 2. She's
you're right. Why do I even think in my head, I get optimistic and I was like, well, maybe
there's that. There's her. And then there's Jim Ho on the Fifth Circuit, who I
got a whole segment on him next.
Yes.
So don't you worry.
And another judge who I think, just my perception, would like attention, and I think is probably willing to stake out positions to put herself in a position to be on the Supreme Court. And it's really just, just a feel, is Judge Rao on the DC Circuit. So there are some people who I think might be candidates to try to demonstrate. They might try to demonstrate in some fashion to the administration that they're not going to be squishes in the way that certainly Amy Coney Barrett is being perceived as, and to a lesser extent, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh.
The reaction to Amy Coney Barrett, to me, is a real, not that we need any more litmus tests for how corrupted sort of the conservative judicial movement is, but the idea that she would have been just a smack dab in the middle, bullseye darling for that community, to have people turn on her. Now, I mean, she's being savaged by the Trumpist right, including many of the sort of people who consider themselves, right-wing legal thinkers for the fact that she is often siding with the more liberal justices.
Well, I mean, they misjudged her. All right. I mean, they judged her solely. I mean, she's a very smart woman. She's obviously very qualified. Looks great on TV, so Trump would like that.
Oh, listen to you with your crush on Amy Coney Barrett.
But what they misjudged about her is they assume that because she's a woman who's had a bunch of kids and is very Catholic and thinks abortion is wrong, that therefore leads her to basically decide everything the way they want things decided. And that's just not the way she rolls. I mean, she is genuinely thoughtful. She listens carefully to arguments, and she has a very strong sense of what's fair and what's not fair. And in terms of, I know the liberals hate her because she voted to overrule Roe v. Wade. Well, the truth of the matter is Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided. People get mad at me whenever I say that, but Roe v. Wade was a ridiculous decision. I debate whether or not it should have been overruled almost 50 years after it was decided. But the notion that it had any real substantial basis in constitutional law is just absurd. And even liberals at the time in 1973 didn't believe that. So I think that they misjudged her, or at least they were so focused on the abortion question that they missed the fact that they were appointing a genuinely thoughtful person who believes in applying the Constitution the way it's meant to be applied.
Well, in this particular, in many of these instances, I've been very glad to see how, just how serious she is. And we even though Kavanaugh, we're one of his concurrences where he's like, I'm everybody's friends, guys. Everybody's cool. I like everybody. He went the right way. So, but let me ask you just before we wrap up this topic on the Alien Enemies Act, now that the Supreme Court has had this 7-2 ruling and, made it real clear that they can't do this. Like, what does that do going forward? How does that change things?
Well, I think it's really sent a message. First of all, I mean, in this particular circumstance, it's going to require a remand to the district court, and then ultimately it's going to go up to the Fifth Circuit about exactly how much the issue first being presented is how much notice are people required to have. And it's certainly 24 hours isn't enough. So that's going to be the first instance. And then the other issue that's just lurking there is whether or not the Alien Enemies Act can be applied at all. And there's a substantive, that's a real substantive issue, as we've discussed. It just doesn't apply. It hasn't been litigated yet, but it will be, and it's ultimately going to have to go up to the Supreme Court.
And was there anything in their opinion this time around that gave you any sense of how they would rule on the substance of using it?
No, but I find it hard to believe that they would hold that the Alien Enemies Act applies. I just find that hard to believe. But we'll it's out there, and it's gonna get decided sooner or later. Well,
the good news is this court's not just doing whatever Trump wants, and so that is a small bright spot in a lot of dark places.
It is that they are reflecting a deep skepticism that other courts have had, that many of these district courts, they're seeing what's been happening in these district courts, and they think the government's playing fast and loose with them. And that's part of why they acted so quickly, and that's part of the tone of the opinion. They don't think the government's playing straight with them, and that is going to have profound effects on all litigations going forward.
All right, George, we got to pay some bills. All right, guys, here's a little science fact for you. Your digital footprint is just as traceable as your carbon one. And unless you're using a VPN, your data's basically waving at advertisers. I know they find me. This is where today's sponsor comes in. Surfshark VPN. I love this name. I love Surfshark as a name. With Surfshark, your online activity is encrypted from prying eyes. Think of it as a secure digital vault for your data. Whether you're researching sensitive topics or just browsing the news, your activity stays private. Since installing Surfshark, I have felt so much calmer, which is a thing I need to feel, when browsing online. The weird ad targeting has really eased off, and I don't have to weigh up the potential consequences of every search I make anymore. A huge win. Plus, when I travel, like to Barcelona, or pretend I am to get better streaming options, I can just change my virtual location. Boom, I'm watching shows and sports from around the world like I'm sitting on my couch back home. And if you're serious about digital security, check out Surfshark Alert. It notifies you if your personal data has been leaked online because knowing is protecting. Secure your privacy with Surfshark. Go to surfshark.com/askgeorge or use code AskGeorge for 4 extra months of Surfshark. It's like a whole quarter of a year. That's surfshark.com/askgeorge or code AskGeorge. The URL is down here in the show notes, guys. Go look at it. Risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. Try it now before your fridge starts recommending conspiracy documents. All right.
Well, I screwed up because I should have immediately downloaded Surfshark last week after I left your offices because I needed it last night. I woke up at 2 in the morning or 2:30 in the morning. I realized that the Knicks were playing the Pacers and I wanted to see. And I turned on my TV here in this room and there's no U.S. sports.
They didn't care about the Pacers in Barcelona.
And the Knicks. And I had to listen to it, on a radio stream on the ESPN. If I had Surfshark,
I could 1983.
I could have just used YouTube TV, and I would have been ready to go. So next time game I'm going to watch from here in Spain, I'm going to use Surfshark. I promise.
All right. Okay. I want to get you brought up Judge Ho on the Fifth Circuit. So after the Supreme Court issued its order in the Supreme Court on Friday, that case went back down to the Fifth Circuit. And in what is a fairly pro forma order, the Fifth Circuit said the Supreme Court remanded the case back to us for further proceedings and directed us to proceed expeditiously. Accordingly, this matter is expedited to the next available randomly designated regular oral argument panel. So super normal. That sounds just like normal course of business. But Judge Ho on the Fifth Circuit had some thoughts and feelings. So this Judge Ho, who you've mentioned, is a darling of the conservative legal world, and people often speculate that he'll be the next conservative justice appointed to the Supreme Court. Anyway, Ho felt compelled to write an 8-page concurrence. He said, "I write to state my sincere concerns about the district judge, as well as the president and other officials have been treated in this case. I worry that the disrespect they have been shown will not inspire continued respect for the judiciary, without which we cannot long function." So your point about auditioning.
Yeah.
The through line in this concurrence is what? President Trump deserves respect, guys.
Yeah. No, it's a bizarre opinion to have written. And it really is. First of all, the Supreme Court did not show disrespect to the district court and to the Court of Appeals. I mean, it was certainly, I think it certainly wished that and felt that those courts should have acted more quickly. But it wasn't really critical. I mean, these were just unusual circumstances that were dictated by the fact that the government is playing games. And, and Donald Trump isn't directly implicated in this. It really wasn't about that. And for Ho to make it about, judicial, we're being insulted. It's like, no, dudes, it's not about you. Not about you or any of your colleagues. It's a question of, can justice be done under the Constitution? And then he makes a big deal out of, these are suspected terrorists. It's like, dude, we already know they've made mistakes here. This is about due process. And if the government's actually got people on buses ready to go, and the government can just take these people out of the country with insufficient notice after the Supreme Court has said they need sufficient notice, and they get no judicial review, to allow that to happen, that would be the most disrespect you could show the federal courts. So the only disrespect being shown the federal courts is by the presidential administration. And that's what Ho should be concerned about, which is what all the other judges have been concerned about. They're concerned about the disrespect that the president and his administration are showing for the rule of law. It's just not about, whether a particular judge got reversed or whether or not the Supreme Court acted more quickly than a district judge normally acts. And, and Ho's statement in his concurring opinion that this is a court, not a Denny's. It's like, the court is here to do justice, and sometimes justice requires acting in the middle of the night. It could be a death penalty case. It could be, but in these removal cases, it's a situation where things are happening in the middle of the night. And if you don't act in the middle of the night, people are going to get hurt and people's rights are going to be denied. So, his line that he put in that opinion about attacking the court, as saying that, the treating district courts like they're supposed to be an all-night diner, is just really, really kind of sick.
You know what this reminds me of? Remember before Bill Barr got officially nominated to DOJ, he had written or made public some kind of letter where he was siding with Trump on something.
It was
like auditioning.
Yeah, it was a memorandum in which he basically said that the president couldn't be prosecuted for obstructing justice. And
that's right.
Turned out, the Supreme Court kind of followed him on that a few years later. But yeah, it was sort of a lot of people felt at the time that Barr was kind of pitching for the job, even though he'd held it previously. But yeah, I get you.
So with that, what the thing about, I remember thinking at the time, okay, this is how people understand. It's like how they understand they got to go on Fox News so that Trump sees them. And they do. There's this constant auditioning. And it's like, it upgrades itself to levels of grossness depending on the importance of the job. But the Supreme Court auditioning feels doesn't he worry about his colleagues, embarrassing himself in front of his colleagues by doing things like this?
Who? Ho? I think these people think of what's my next job? I think there are people who are just so ambitious that they think about that they want to be on the Supreme Court and they will do what it takes to be on the Supreme Court. Now, is that what motivating Ho? I can't tell you whether it's that or maybe he's the way he appears to be and would be in any environment, even if he had zero chance of ever being appointed to the Supreme Court. But you do see a lot of this phenomenon generally, not just with respect to getting new jobs, but people who want to keep old jobs and people who are just afraid of getting yelled at. The example I think of the most is the USS John McCain. It was 2019, and Trump
I remember this.
Visited, forget the name of the naval base in Japan, where the Pacific Fleet is based. But he visited it was on a Memorial Day weekend, and everybody got worried that Trump would see the USS John McCain. I don't know how he would have figured out it was the John McCain because they only have numbers on the ships, but they were concerned about that. So basically, they hid the ship.
Yeah.
They told all the sailors to get off the base, I think, because they didn't want anybody walking around with one of those USS John McCain whatever the designation is on the ship number. And it became a whole huge thing. And then we found out Trump didn't have to say anything. It was just some guy in the military office at the White House realized they didn't want a problem with Trump. So they just called over and said, hey, can you move this destroyer? Which is just insane.
But North Korea style garbage.
It's totally North Korea style. And it reminds me of something that historian Sir Ian Kershaw described in one of his books. He's a historian who specialized in Nazi Germany, and in particular, the life of Adolf Hitler. And one of the phenomenon that he describes is the concept of working toward the Führer. And this was the concept, what it meant to convey, I don't know what it was in the original German, but is that people would try to anticipate the Führer's wants and desires. And so he didn't have to give orders sometimes to get atrocious things done. People just said, the Fuhrer would want this, so we must do this. And then maybe somebody will go up to the Fuhrer, mein Fuhrer, look at what we've done. And it's the same type of thing. It's this kind of sickness that pervades an authoritarian regime. And we are now, we're a lot of historians and social scientists, comparative government experts describe what we have in America today as a competitive authoritarian regime. This is what happens with Donald Trump. People are trying to curry his favor, trying to get to anticipate his needs and desires, and they're acting accordingly, even without direction.
So just to go back to Ho for a second, since you know a lot about this guy, is this the chances of him being, so like we were talking about before, if we do see Alito or Thomas retire and this person is like pretty high up on the list, what do you know about him? What kind of justice would he be?
I don't know enough about him other than what I've seen of his opinions lately. I think he would be every bit as out there as Thomas and Alito. I think that's the way he's pitching himself. I assume there is ambition there. And he's exactly the kind of justice we don't need at this point, because we already got two of them.
Any chance he's like Barr, who like secretly like does bad things, like, but has a line?
Yeah, I don't know that he does. I mean, somebody today, I was reading an article written by a Substack post written by Steve Vladeck, professor at Georgetown, about Ho's opinion, where he basically expressed the views about Ho's concurring opinion that I just expressed. And he tweeted out, he posted a link on Blue Sky, I think it was. And one of the replies was, James Ho is the Stephen Chung of Judge Cannon's, Eileen Cannon's. And it was like, yeah, basically, yeah, because the language that he uses in his opinions.
Stephen Chung being one of Trump's spokespeople.
Right. Stephen Chung, who uses extreme language
yes.
in his statements. I mean, the extreme use of language, the harshness of the language that Ho uses, I think is indicative of a lack of judicial temperament. And so I thought that characterization was fairly accurate.
Okay, well, let's doesn't sound like there's any good choices that we're going to look at to replace these guys if they come.
We have so many other problems. Look, I mean, if it's just swapping out Alito and Thomas for, I guess that's not so bad, because one of the things that I've been saying is, people were saying, well, how could Alito and Thomas still dissent in AARP too? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't like that, but the fact is like, I'll take a 7-2 decision any day in any court on any issue.
Yep.
I think
for sure.
7-2,
right.
That 7-2 is great.
I know we were all, other than the fact that we were annoyed that we had just been done taping, we were thrilled with the decision.
Right.
All right. I really want to get to this Paramount deal and talk about that. But first, if coffee isn't giving you the same boost anymore, it's time to try Mud Water. Mud Water is a cozy mix of cacao, chai, turmeric, and aptogenetic mushrooms to help you feel focused and balanced, not wired. Each ingredient in Mud Water serves a purpose. Their OG blend contains cacao and chai for a hint of caffeine and hot chocolate-like flavor. Lion's mane to focus, cordyceps to promote natural energy, and both chaga and reishi to support a healthy immune system. I will just say, whenever I see cordyceps, I think of The Last of Us. I don't know if you're watching that show, but I think those are like, cordyceps are like the mushroom zombies, but I think that's not what's in this drink, just FYI. The best part about Mud Water is it sustains your energy without spikes and the crash of traditional coffee. Their matcha starter kit is essential. It's the perfect way to step into clean energy with matcha's calming, focused boost. Their rest starter kit is all you need to start your journey to better relaxation. Don't we all need a little more relaxation? And so you can unwind and have better sleep quality. Relax into floral chamomile and chai spices for a cozy end to your day. head to mudwater.com, and that's water, W-T-R, not the full word, and grab your starter kit today. Right now, our listeners get an exclusive deal up to 43% off your entire order, plus free shipping and a free rechargeable frother when you use code AskGeorge. Love our code AskGeorge. Sometimes George comes to us and says, hey,
what's the code?
What's the code for some mud water? And I'm like, it's Ask George, George.
No, I get confused when it's Ask George 15 or Ask George 30.
Oh, that's true. If you're going to, yeah, that's right.
Is it all caps?
Just Ask George for this one. Ask George. So the mud water, we got it all over the office, their products. We all love it. It is, there's different things. We also really love the frother. We use the frother all the time in the office. It has become like our go-to, like, kitchen aid. But, you know, I always thought I was like not a person who could drink mushroom drinks. But as I get older and as coffee like absolutely destroys my sleep, I find that this kind of thing, like, it's just more chill. It's just more chill. And sometimes I need a little chill. I don't know if you've noticed that, George.
Could be. The two of us. I mean, you know,
both of us
bouncing off the walls. Yeah, I wish I could see, the problem is I'm not in the States right now, so I probably can't get mud water shipped to me here in time for the next Knicks game, but I can absolutely download the other thing.
All right, ready to make the switch to cleaner energy? Head to mudwater.com and grab your starter kit today. Right now, our listeners get an exclusive deal up to 43% off your entire order, plus free shipping and a free rechargeable frother. We love those when you use code AskGeorge. That's right, up to 43% off with code AskGeorge at mudwtr.com. After you purchase, they'll ask you how you found them. Please show your support and let them know we sent you. Keep your energy natural and refreshing all year long with mud water, because life's too short for anything less than clean, delicious energy.
Easy to remember, because the only vowel in mud water is you, because it's for you.
You've missed your calling.
I missed my calling. I could be a pitch man.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So this Paramount deal, we've talked about it before in the context of, because this is, there's a bunch of different tentacles, and I wonder if people even realize how related they all are, which is, you know, the 60 Minutes over at CBS, basically their head producer, like the guy who ran the show, quit. And it made big news when he did it, because he was saying, like, hey, they're trying to like muck with the show because Paramount, our parent company, wants this merger, right? And 3 Democratic senators just recently, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Ron Wyden, so not 3 of my political spiritual sort of companions.
Spiritual animals.
Yeah, these are not, it's not exactly usually my kind of politics, but they wrote a letter to Paramount Global's controlling shareholder, Sherry Redstone, who's been at the center of a lot of this, warning that Paramount might break federal anti-bribery law by settling Trump's lawsuit against CBS for its 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. Because, by the way, this is the thing. Trump is suing 60 Minutes and CBS because they edited, which they do literally for everything, right? They edited the Kamala Harris thing. It's an absurd attack by Trump. And for CBS to capitulate to this would be, it'd be like these law firms and other places that are all caving to him just because they're afraid that he won't, you know, do their M&A stuff, their mergers and acquisitions. So their letter says, Paramount appears to be walking back its commitments to defend CBS's First Amendment rights. Months before Trump sued CBS, Paramount and Skydance announced an agreement to merge for $8 billion. Because the merger will involve the transfer of ownership of CBS broadcast licenses, the Trump administration's Federal Communications Commission, FCC, must review the deal and has an opportunity to block it. Paramount appears to be attempting to appease the administration in order to secure merger approval. Paramount's scheme to curry favor with the Trump administration has compromised journalistic independence and raises serious concerns of corruption and improper conduct. So I'm super interested in what you think about this, both like legally and strategically.
All right. Well, first of all, you started off with the merits of the case. You're absolutely right. There is none. There is no.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching the show. If you want to catch the rest of this episode, then go become a Bulwark Plus subscriber. The link to become a subscriber is right below here in the episode description. Click on that, become a Bulwark Plus subscriber, catch the rest of the show, and support all the great work we do here at the Bulwark. Thanks, guys.
Well, George Conway, he's a man with a plan. Got to sit down with Sarah Longwell, take a stand, explain all the legal problems they're piling high. With Donald Trump, oh my, oh my, oh my. He said, Sarah, let me break it down for you. There's obstruction of justice.